would you let her die?
Break it open.
Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. I like their little green masks over the top of another mask.
Yeah.
It's a bit of overkill, but...
Well, how else are you supposed to know that they're Riddler's henchmen?
Oh, that's true. They should have, like, question marks on them.
Like they always did in the comics. That was like,
yeah.
you clearly are shouting out.
If you were a thug and your boss dressed up like that, would you be like, yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, like I don't know if I feel good about this.
There's no
having this
subtlety
on
whatsoever.
my crime CV
Oh, yeah. Oh,
for Plunk.
that's not good. I will say they definitely have upped the factor even in the fight scenes in this that I really like.
Yeah.
The amount of choices you get in those little tiny moments is really, really cool.
Very impressed with you.
Very impressive, Telltale.
Oh, jeez.
God.
Come on, man.
Let the man...
Good thing we're not eating lunch at the same time.
Speaking of which, hot dogs? Hot dogs, anyone? Hot
I
dogs?
wanted a few Frankfurters. 5 of them.
Oh my God. Do you want to antagonize him?
You're just ordinary scum.
All right, perfect. Perfect. If he loses any more fingers, it's not
That's
your
on
fault.
me.
Oh, we'll know who to blame. So with your career as a voice actor, so would you say this is your first kind of big outing?
This is my only and first and only real voiceover job, and
Wow.
playing the Joker. It's a big, it's a lot. It's a huge honor, but it's also a big ask. But,
It's definitely going into the major leagues right off the bat, which is really
I know,
cool.
it's crazy. I'm not playing, Thug number 4. Actually, I am.
Yeah, I was gonna
am,
say.
Actually, I in episode 1. I hope we can hear him. I also play a thug. So, one of Bane's guys.
Gordon getting a shot in. Well, that is so cool. So, I mean, it's really crazy to think of just... when you posted that video of you playing the 3 more iconic Jokers, did you ever imagine that this is where it was going to lead to?
I was 6 and I watched Mask of the Phantasm. And it was Harrison Ford and the Joker were my childhood, really.
Really?
Yeah. It was Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Joker, and that was really it. And now I've done both. And before I'm 30, and it's just insane.
That is nuts.
I would not have expected that as a child. So yeah, I mean, in high school, especially in Australia, when I was supposed to be studying, all I was doing was drawing the Joker, because I like to draw as well.
Oh my goodness,
so
that is awesome.
I was just drawing big smiles all over my homework, and the teacher was like, "What the hell is wrong? What's wrong with this kid?"
We have some concerns about Anthony.
Yeah.
It is crazy the way life works in that kind of way.
It is.
I remember you mentioning earlier that you've moved around a lot. When you were a kid, that you went to different places. Can you let the audience know kind of like the different places that you lived? And...
Yeah. Well, my father was a diplomat for the Australian government, so I was born in the Philippines, and then we went to Canada, Ottawa. And then Australia in Canberra, which is the capital, and then to Cyprus, the Greek side, you can see it, and then New Zealand, and then Holland. But in between there, we would only be in one country for about 3 or 4 years, and then swap out. So those were the countries, but we would swap. So I was in Australia, then Cyprus, then back to Australia, New Zealand, back to Australia, then...
That is insane.
So
that is a lot of places.
So that was where I think the whole acting thing and the voices came in, because I would have to say goodbye to friends all the time. That was very painful. But the one thing that I did have all the time was movies. So I would, that became like a comfort thing. Like comfort food for me was watching familiar movies and familiar things. And so I can basically verbatim quote entire movies that like The Shining, Blade Runner. Like you ask me Indiana Jones, I can just quote the entire movie.
That is crazy, and then it's also nuts that those favorite movies of yours is what led you.
Paid off. Yeah. It wasn't like what a waste of whatever. It was really like training.
Yeah.
Getting familiar with the voices and stuff. So it wasn't like when they asked me to do Joker, I was like, oh, who's the Joker? I was like, oh, I've read every single comic I know, every movie, seen all the cartoons. So I have a big plethora of knowledge there. So.
I will say this. The times that I've gotten a chance to talk to Anthony and whatnot off camera and everything else, like, it has been surprising how much knowledge you have about Batman and Joker just right there.
I think Troy and I both have extensive knowledge. I mean, Troy is also a huge nerd as well as me. And I think that, hey, that looks like Christian Bale.
It does, actually, yeah.
Oh, man.
I was just about to
A
say.
nice little nod to Christian. Yeah. So it's cool that I get to voice a character that is very close to me and that I really have immense respect for. So it's very nice.
That was pretty crazy. Also, what we saw there was Riddler definitely being able to almost stand toe to toe with Batman and fighting.
That's the thing that I like also about the Telltale series is that Batman isn't super overpowered.
Yes.
And every villain, like Lady Arkham, was also a challenge, you know. And so it's not just like, kapow, one punch out.
Yeah,
it's really
one and done.
You know, it puts a lot of pressure on the player and also on Bruce in the story mode. Like, I mean, this guy has to fight. Just well, we'll see later, but
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that later, but.
Shout out to Kent.
There's
Kent,
Kent.
awesome director. Wonderful job, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but see, like you mentioned the green masks. At the very least, in this way, they still feel like, I guess, they're part of a team, but
That's
it's
true.
more subdued.
Yeah, that's true. No, I know. I was expecting jumpsuits with big green question marks on them, and you know,
Little dance numbers. Doing some Adam West.
The Bat Tusi. I love Adam West though.
Oh, yeah.
And he passed away recently. That was very sad.
I know. I mean, he played so many kind of iconic characters.
I loved him in Family Guy. He was my favorite part in Family Guy.
Yeah, as the mayor. Yeah. Oh god.
Oh my gosh, I'm a tomato. Brilliant.
So what were you saying is it would be some of your voice actor people that you look up to that kind of help guide you to what you want to do.
Well, yeah, Mark Hamill obviously, and Troy. Really, I spoke to Troy about that off camera because I was gushing like a schoolgirl, and I said to him, you know, that really. I had always had a thing for film. You know, I had the icons, you know, Jack and Mark and John Malkovich that were and Gary Oldman. You know, this big list.
Yeah.
But for voice acting, I really I noticed because in the '90s the voice acting wasn't always that great. I mean, you had some like Crash Bandicoot, which was great. But then other games like the early Resident Evil games where the voice acting was a bit. And then I think Troy was part of
what was it, the Master of Unlocking? You know, back in Resident Evil days.
Yeah.
That wonderful, superb.
the Jill sandwich and stuff. But then I think Troy belongs to the new wave of performance that's needed for these games because I mean it's become more than just the '80s where it was just a red square, you know, play the green square as he jumps from the red square, you know. And now it's become so cinematic and so realistic. I mean that you need performances that match that quality, and I think it's amazing for me to work with Troy.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Because I remember, my point was I remember a game called Bad Dudes in the arcades where two guys would come running in. The president has been kidnapped.
That's awesome. Are you a bad enough dude? Yeah, that was a great game. Yeah.
And then to see where it's evolved, where especially like with what we put out with Telltale, is that it's another almost movie-going experience.
Yeah.
One that you get to affect and to change, of course, but still the acting and everything.
It's interesting because if you look at the Uncharted series and other cinematic games, I remember Roger Ebert said video games will never be art, and I was like, oh okay, well have a look at this. You know, it's the VR experience as well. I mean, it's gotten to that level where it's gone from an arcade with a slot and stuff to fully immersive and just amazing. So it's so great to be a part of that for me, just being a fan.
It's nice having you here, man, because I mean, just even getting the chance to briefly get to know you and whatnot, like Guys, once again, can't say enough praises about Anthony here.
It's
Truly-
gonna be. This is like we're just sitting on the grill, like, oh, dude, I love you too, man. And
love
everyone's
you
just
too,
like,
man.
when are these guys gonna say something interesting?
In 30 minutes.
30 minutes later.
Recorded, aren't we?
But no, because it is one of those kind of things that you can tell with how easy you're able to slip in and out of certain impersonations and whatnot. And you know, there are voice actors that out there that can't do that as easily, and it's really kind of.
I mean,
to see
it's
how you do
challenging.
that.
It is always when people ask me to do a voice. There is that thing of I'm doing it on the spot and like, oh, let me do it again. And if
Yeah.
it's live, you know, if it's live, but it is fun, like when you get that reaction of like, wow, that was awesome. But yeah, there is. So I understand when people. I think it's more hesitation because it is live.
Yeah.
So people say like, you know, oh, do John Malkovich. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, I'll try, you know, or something, you know, like, yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, because you know you kind of briefly talked about this, but I would be kind of curious if you could take us maybe through your process of arriving on your Joker, like an actual like, so we can hear how you first started out. You mentioned like with Mark Hamill, and then how you kind of like walked it in, so we can kind of hear what was going on.
Yeah,
with that.
it's really, well, it was the whole Mark Hamill angle that I first approached it, but Telltale made it clear that they didn't want that, and so I when I auditioned, I thought, how would I, if this was live action, how would I do this role? And also, I thought, okay, I'm just gonna play a psychotic creep, not really the Joker. Like I took the Joker out.
Yeah.
I didn't approach it as this is the Joker. I said this is just some creepy, you know, sadist. So I was like, okay, how would I do that? And then also there's that charm factor.
Yeah.
So I threw in a little bit of that 1930s broadcaster voice when he's talking to the doctor.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Doc. You know, like I threw a little bit of that in there just because like that would be how the Joker, well, John Doe, perceives a charming person to be.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he doesn't really have a personality that comes, like I think he's a bit, he gets information and then he forms himself.
Yeah.
You know, like he takes snippets of what he thinks people want to hear to manipulate them, and he does a brilliant job at that with Leland. You know, and so I in my performance, I wanted to make sure that there were all these different sort of things where the voice would just change. Like at times you would get a full Joker, like, me? You know, and then you'd get John Doe, which
Yeah.
was, you know, hey, how are you? You know, like that smarmy prick.
Yeah.
Who, you know, you don't want your daughter to date this guy, but he could if he wanted to. Like he's that
good. He's that
good at
charming.
manipulating people. And then there's also like I wanted to be a little bit of a fakeness to some things.
Yeah.
Like just so you know that this guy is scary and he's capable of doing horrific things. So there are times when I would bring in a little bit like, oh, this is rehearsed.
Yeah.
Like he's practiced this with somebody else and he's doing that now.
Yeah.
So like the Patrick Bateman kind of thing, like, you know, that sort of persona. And then there were times when that would drop. And that when I got to drop that act, and then you could, you know, like with the outbursts and stuff where he gets just super, I mean, like when he says like, didn't stop that guy from trying, you know, like,
Yeah.
like he can't keep it in. So, you know, that was like the perfect sort of way to incorporate both of those personalities in the span of like 15 seconds, you know.
It's really cool. I mean, it does kind of show. How do you get into that mindset where you can go from like that calm to then the immediate?
Well, the thing is, like I talked about that as well. You use all the frustration and the anxiety and the you know, being an actor, and every time you get turned down for something,
Yeah.
you get, you know, and then you use that anger and stuff, like, and then I release it into a performance, and it's like scream therapy, but it's really you get paid for it, you know.
Getting paid for therapy.
And it's really, you know, it was a really healthy way to deal with disappointments and frustrations, because everyone has it.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to tap into it and use it for something instead of, you know, starting a fight with somebody, because I'm not a violent person at all. I've never been in a fight at all. But
Oh, really?
no, never.
Wow.
And I've always used humor to deal with, you know, because I had bullies and stuff like that. And always being the new kid.
Yeah.
And I found that doing voices and telling jokes was a way to diffuse a bully or something, and also make friends.
Oh.
So it was really, yeah, it was very, from a childhood age, I used that sort of, you know, to my advantage, and it's great that it's paying off in that I'm able to do what I love.
You know, it's crazy because, you know, while I didn't move around to different countries and that kind of stuff, in the same state, I think I moved around 8 or 9 times by the time I was 12 and whatnot. So I had to go through the same thing where you go into a school and they all want to pick on the new kid, typically. And yeah, you try and use humor or whatnot to help kind of diffuse the situation. To stave off, and so that's really interesting to hear. Like that, no matter it seems wherever you live,
it's just cool that you're able to portray a character that you're not.
Yes.
So it's such a cathartic thing, and that's why people play video games as well. That's why, you know, normal people play shooters. You know, we're not going to go shoot up a building, but we can play, you know, Call of Duty or whatever to just like, or paintball or something, you know.
Exactly.
So I sort of see it the same way. Like, I'm not a sadist or psycho, but I'd love playing one. Like, it's a great way to deal with things, you know.
It is one of those kind of things. Like I think, you know, oh God, don't get me started. We've heard so many times where like video games cause violence and blah blah blah. But it is one of those kind of things that video games are an escape.
I see it that way as well. I see it, and Tarantino talks about that as well. That it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
And I feel like you know, if you repress things, if you make it taboo, people are drawn to it. But if it's there,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the prohibition. You know?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
alcohol, like now. Back then, it's like, oh, I need alcohol. It's gone. We gotta get it. You know. And now it's like, yeah, you know, whatever. And you know. So I see it kind of like a cathartic release. Oh, he's got that hole in his ear.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
dear.
Yep. You know, your choices matter in this game, and what ends up happening
Carries over.
to people. Well, to us, I'm really pleased we're introducing Amanda Waller, because
Yes.
this is a character that
She's a great character.
It's been introduced in certain little snippets, but she
Yeah.
was never a huge focus, it seems, until recently, like the last 10 years or so in comics and in
because she was
cartoons.
in Arkham Origins.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
In Blackgate.
Yeah.
I believe there was a little bit of her.
Just a little bit.
And she's an unexplored character, and
Yeah.
so it's cool that. I mean, you had Blockbuster in this game, and even I didn't know who he was.
See, Blockbuster, I actually read when Robin wanted to create his own, the original Robin wanted to create his own persona and become Nightwing. I remember he went over to Bloodhaven, and then that's where, in the comics, at least for me, I was introduced in the Blockbuster. So I was familiar with this great big old hulking character. We, however, definitely changed the look of a bit of it from what I saw in the comics. It was
He looked a bit like Swamp Thing mixed with Solomon Grundy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Like, he had a cool look to him. He was like a blue guy.
Yeah, so it is kind of interesting to see and get that kind of take, because once again, Blockbuster, another character that really hasn't gained a lot of notoriety. So it's interesting. And Amanda Waller, I think, had the most prominent in Suicide Squads, of course, and where I think we can start kind of mining that extra character.
Ryan, I wish we could stay here forever and ever and ever.